Good morning, Daily Huddle family. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. I'm so glad to be here. I get you once a month. We've got Tara in the house as well. And I've got a guest joining us that I am really excited as we talk about relationships and communication on Tuesdays. I met this guy at a networking event in Chicago in the summer, and I just thought he was the best conversationalist. And what I've learned about him since is he's amazing at building relationships. So I thought I would love to introduce you to Alan Stern. Alan Stern is a dynamic speaker, a DJ, and a marketing expert with nearly 20 years of sales and marketing experience in this retail and service industries. He's passionate about helping small businesses thrive, and Alan teaches how to leverage AI and freemium apps to create a big impact with your marketing on a small budget. Driven by the belief that people buy from a person before they buy from a brand, his unique approach helps audiences blend humor and education to create marketing that builds trust and truly connects. Welcome, Alan. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hey, I just want to turn it back to you and say thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Before we dive into our question of the day, will you just give a little bit of your story, kind of tell how you ended up doing what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So my backstory for the past 2 decades has consisted of owning a DJ and selling cars, two completely unrelated fields. But the one thing that they have in common is the fact that I had to brand myself as the trusted individual. And what I found is there's this huge network that is underserved of independent sales reps and solopreneurs that are likely too small for marketing agencies to work with. So, I found a niche and started teaching them how to leverage AI to keep marketing in-house.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and I've dove in and took your course and just thoroughly looked forward to it each week. It was so interesting and I learned so much. So love that. Well, that's kind of what made me think of bringing you in, because we talk about relationships and communication, and I find it fascinating this, use of AI right now. So, we talked about, this idea of will AI enhance or is it going to diminish our communication skills? So let's throw it to you, Alan. How do you answer that question? Is AI good or bad for our communication skills?
It's a great question. I truly believe it can go either way. For the people who choose, keyword here, who choose to just delegate because they're lazy, communication is going to get way worse. Actually, it's to the point where I think everybody on this call or who's listening it can recognize something that was purely written by Chat GPT. Like anytime that we get an email that has the subject line or the header that says, "I hope this email finds you well," and it has a whole bunch of emojis, you already know Chat GPT wrote it. So from that regard, the people who are just looking to delegate and 100% outsource, I think communication skills are going to go down because they're going to become reliant on it. However, for the professionals that are great at their craft and are always sharpening their skill set, I think it's going to get way better because it's never been easier to leverage this tool as your market research company to figure out what is important to prospects that may be in need of your product or service, or just get demographic info, yeah, and that way you can communicate a little bit better. And I'll give some examples later on in this call too, but I think it will go either way.
I love it. I've got a funny example. I was talking to a guy who's deep into using ChatGPT for everything. And he said, it can make your relationships better. And he gave the example of he had some conflict with his wife. And so he went to ChatGPT and he said, here's my wife. Here's who she is. Here's what her perspective is. And here's me, here's my perspective, and this is the thing she just said. How should I reply in a way that will better our relationship? So ChatGPT gave him the answer. He replied in that way, and his wife said, "You clearly ChatGPT'd that, and
I'm
it was better than you
hilarious.
normally would have done."
This is hilarious. I had no idea. So Chat GPT is now in the therapy business.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, let's talk about, one way, that you teach people to communicate, whether it is, just verbally or in your marketing or whether using AI or not, you give a little structure to how to really connect with people. And I'm all about a structure. Give me a structure so I know how to get things done. So talk about your structure that you teach.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm truly driven by this belief. It doesn't matter if times are bad, if times are good, if AI takes over the world. At the end of the day, before people buy from a brand, they make the decision to buy from a person who represents a brand. So connection's truly everything. And what I've done is somebody who's attended probably 60 to 70 networking events a year for, almost a decade, is I've came up with this structure called the HEAT method, which combines four elements: humor, education, adding value, and trust. You mix all four of those in your social media content strategy. Believe it or not, Christy, what you can do is you can meet somebody in person one time, connect with them on social media, and based off of what you post, they warm up to you over time. So, would it be okay if I just break down all four of those elements?
Yeah, let's do them. Give them each to us.
So the idea is social media at the end of the day is nothing more than a tool. And the fact that you are either using it or it is using you. And if you don't know how it's using you, simple question. How is it that Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn are free platforms, yet they're billion-dollar companies? It's because they use our data and sell it to advertisers, which is why they have the most valuable ads on the planet. But knowing the reason why most people go on social media is really important. Most people go on social media to be entertained. So the opportunity is here. When you make somebody laugh, they tend to remember what made them laugh. And in this case, that's you. Half of the battle marketing is getting noticed, the other half is getting remembered, which is one of the reasons why we look at some of the most successful Super Bowl ads, and a lot of them tend to use humor. So the idea is with humor, it's not really about being funny. It's actually about creating a connection. So let's say that we met at an event once and we connected online. You see my stuff, whether it's memes, whether it's funny stuff, what have you. And now what happens is you see my stuff and you say, hey, you know what? This person, it doesn't seem like they're all business. They actually have a personality. They seem cool. Like I'd actually go and grab lunch or a coffee with them. And now the wall is down and you're more receptive to hear what that person has to say. The caveat right here, though, is you can't get lost in humor, especially if you're using it for business. Otherwise, people start to say, are you a comedian? Or can you actually help me? So you have to blend education in, which is the second part of the heat method. And the reason why that's important from a positioning standpoint is when you sell, you break rapport. But when you educate, you build it. When you use education in your marketing, you are positioned as a resource versus a salesperson. When you are a resource, first off, you demonstrate that you actually know what you're talking about. But now, when you're a resource, people want to pick your brain. When they pick your brain, you've just now generated a lead, but you've done so by being able to solve a problem. So you put the two of those together, your audience says, this person's cool, but all jokes aside, they can actually help me. I promise, if you're listening to this and you just do those two things, you will notice a dramatic switch in your engagement. Now, the third, oh, go on.
No, I was just going to jump in and say, I think that's a huge point there. Just those two together. I would like to be described that way. She's cool. She can solve my problems. Who wouldn't want to be that? That's a killer combination.
For sure. And going a layer deeper, in the world of business, we exchange problems. I'm taking this podcast right now from the dead of winter in Chicago. And let's put it this way: Chicago winters, we get a lot of snow. So we exchange our time and our money to go to a car wash to solve the problem of not having to clean our car ourselves in the freezing cold. Like we join a chamber of commerce to solve the problem of lack of visibility. So the third part is adding value, and it goes without saying, it is 2025 and we live in a world of scams. Like everywhere we turn, it seems like we are getting lied to, and there's some new data breach or scam, and people have a massive wall up, and rightfully so. So it's not what you say, it's not even how you say it, it's how your audience feels when they receive your message. And when you are somebody who solely focuses on adding value and enhancing the life of your audience and just making the life of everybody around you better, people can feel that. And when they feel like you're looking out for them, you become a person of interest. In other words, you become somebody who people want to be around. And free value leads to trust, which is the fourth element. And people do business with those who they know, like, and trust. Like, let's say that you check off those first three areas, but you don't check off the social proof area, people are still skeptical. So if you collect and repurpose reviews, you can scale the sale and allow your audience to actually do the selling for you.
So when you're talking about trust, you're talking about getting proof and getting your reviews online so that when somebody says, "Hey, this guy's cool. He seems like he can solve my problem. He's got this thing for me," then he's going to go to look for the proof online and look for that trust. Is that what
Yeah,
you're?
so like the thought process is you could say all the right things, and people are like, man, this guy is saying all the right things. He seems to be a good person. I feel the intention's good, but is he trying to pull one over on me? So what happens? Now you can go to somebody's LinkedIn, you can see their recommendations, which those are personal reviews on LinkedIn if you're not familiar with those terms, or you can go and look at Google reviews. And now let's say that you have somebody that has 50, 70, 100 reviews. Now all of a sudden the social proof is there because people are like, well, you know what? If I was wrong, I'm sure these other people, 100 of them who left five-star reviews, probably feel the same way.
So we've got the heat method, and I can, really see how that plays out in your business and what you're trying to sell or market. Does it apply to just like personal relationships as well? Can you take that same method and does it work in the same way in personal relationships?
It does. The same personal stuff works in the business world for one reason, connection. So let's say that you're single and you're going on dates and whatnot. Let's talk about the psychology of just humor alone. So if we want to get really, really deep, when you laugh, there's a huge amount of stuff that's going on psychologically in somebody's brain. For starters, there's a hormone that is released called oxytocin, which is often referred to as the trust hormone. So if people do business with those who they know, like, and trust by making somebody laugh, all you're doing is you're speeding up that process. But the other thing is when people laugh, there's a smile on their face. They feel good. So there's a release of dopamine. So people enjoy and naturally gravitate to those who can put a smile on their face. So let's say that you're using this in the personal world or the dating world. People simply enjoy being around you if you make them feel good.
You just kind of blew my mind because I can't tell you, I would bet you if you asked 10 women, what do you want in a man? I think the number one thing that you'll hear somebody say first is, I want them to make me laugh. And I've never associated that with trust, ever. That's fascinating.
It's wild. There's a book that was written by two people that are way smarter than me, like doctorates. It's called Humor Seriously. It does a deep dive and it talks about how and why humor is a secret weapon, not only in relationships, but in the business world. So that's actually where I got all that from.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So somebody is marketing, they're using the heat method. What else is important to know about connection, as we're trying to build relationships and connect either online or in person?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the reason why. Let's say that we want to do a business example. Well, the reason, and I can say this with an automotive background, the reason why somebody buys a minivan versus why somebody buys a Corvette are two completely different things. Two completely different customers, yet at the end of the day, it's still four wheels with a steering wheel. It gets you from here to there. So it all starts with identifying the reason why somebody is interested. Now, let's say those of you who wanted to actually take this and run with it, switching gears into the AI section, you can use ChatGPT, just simply the free version, is your market research company. Like back in the day, we used to call these focus groups. Have you ever sat in on one of those? So, side note, this actually was one of my high school jobs. So I got exposed to this industry at a very young age. A focus group basically means you get paid to give your opinion on something. So yours truly worked at the local shopping mall, and my job was to flag down innocent bystanders and say, hey, would you like to get paid to do a survey? To which people would usually tell me to kick rocks. But the idea is you're gathering industry data from real people. So let's say that you wanted to use ChatGPT is your market research company. What I can do, and I'm just going to do a real estate example for this, is I can reverse engineer problems that would make the phone ring. The difference between something like Google and something like ChatGPT is Google gives you suggestions. Hey, what are the best restaurants in the area? And then it routes you to their website. ChatGPT gives you answers. So I can say, what are 5 problems that would cause someone to consider listing their home for sale? Why is that important? Because we talked about people exchange money to solve problems. The problem creates a situation, and the situation is what drives the sale. The situation in somebody's house might be, although it's paid off, they're an empty nester on fixed income and their property taxes shot through the roof. Very relevant here in Illinois, by the way. So if you reverse engineer a problem that makes the phone ring, I now, as the salesperson, have the ability to communicate about something that they actually care about. So I can say, hey, if you are the kind of person that is on fixed income and your property tax just shot through the roof, well, here's what to do in this situation. And now I became a resource versus somebody who's just trying to push my product or service.
Yeah. That's such a great example. And when I took your class, that was, I think, one of the things that I found. I found it all super interesting and entertaining, but that was super helpful. And you showed us a way to even, make it so that ChatGPT gave it to you in a really useful table format and all of that as well. So yeah, love
Yep.
it. Yeah,
So
love
what's
it.
interesting too, just building on that, is once we have the data, we can feed the data back to Chat GPT and we can actually leverage it as our copywriter. So I believe you took my course back in July. This may not have even been on there. So once I get a problem that makes the phone ring, I can ask Chat GPT for an audience that is most likely to experience it.
Right.
Piggybacking off of that example about empty nester who experiences the problem of high property taxes, I can now feed that back to ChatGPT using something called the APE format, audience, problem, explanation. And I can say, ChatGPT, create an article to an audience of empty nesters who experience the problem of high property taxes, explaining why now is a great time to consider listing their house. And now I've fed Chat GPT all of the framework that I need to turn that into a sales letter. And as opposed to spending 3 to 4 hours on a blog post like we used to have to do before AI, now it's done in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Amazing. And then, so, oh, Tara, your
My
mind blown.
mind is blown. Can you just slow down for a second?
Sure, a little bit too much coffee.
Oh, no, it's great, but I need reinforcement so I can take this and run with it. Tell this ape thing again.
Yep, audience, problem, explanation.
Okay, okay.
And this works in any business. If I wanted to use a car sales example, create an article to an audience of owners of motor vehicles who experience the problem of high cost of maintenance, explaining why now would be a good time to consider replacing their car. Problem, solution, explanation. And you could do that for anything. You could probably even do that for, personal examples. I haven't tried it. I've just used it for business, but problem, solution, explanation.
So that's getting your phone to ring, right? So
Yep.
that's your ad, that's your copy. And then what do you say in terms of, communication after that? Um, how would you use AI or would you? Now is it like now we're solely on our own, to work with these potential clients, or is there a way that AI can help us with that communication as well?
Big time. So I'm going to give you 3 examples here. Let's just go with the article example because we just did that. So all of this sounds great, but you might be wondering, where do I host this article? Do I have to get like a website, blog, whatnot? LinkedIn has this free feature called a newsletter, which everybody has access to, even on the free version. So what I can do is I can go and start a LinkedIn newsletter, and now it's a blog that hosts all of my content on that platform with crazy distribution. If you have 2,000 followers on LinkedIn, 2,000 connections, and you just make a normal post, you're at the mercy of whatever mood LinkedIn is in today. Maybe a handful of people will see it, maybe a bunch will, whatnot, who knows? You start a newsletter and you have 2,000 connections, every single one of those 2,000, you heard that correctly, by the way, every single one of them We'll get a notification at the top saying that Christy or Tara started the newsletter, and it'll ask, would you like to subscribe? Expect between 10 and 30% will subscribe, and from there on out, any future article that you post, all subscribers see. So that's where you post it. But now let's say if you wanted to do a video, take that same ape format. Help me with a video script targeted to an audience of empty nesters who experience the problem of high property taxes, explaining why they should consider listing your house. And then at the end, throw a call to action. Say, oh, by the way, if you want to actually list your house, I'm your guy or gal to do so. And now it's an advertisement. So that's the second. And then the third, you can take that article and you can turn it into an ebook, or you can do a lead magnet or a checklist or what have you. So once we have the framework, the meat and potatoes, we just ask ChatGPT for a variation.
And that gets the phone ringing and starts the conversations.
Correct.
And then it's up to us to, build those connections, keep focusing in on, go back to like that heat method, right? Like even in those live communications.
For sure. Once the phone rings, at that point, it's the opportunity for you to put the sales hat on. But as opposed to selling the product, you are closing on solving the problem. Hey, Christy, you mentioned your car's 20 years old with 320,000 miles. It's only a matter of time. You can't say it like that, but nonetheless, you're addressing a single problem as opposed to just trying to sell something that they may or may not care about.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and that's what I really get from you is that it is all about solving the problem. That we lose them when we sell to them. Nobody wants to be sold to, and so I think that's why I love your methods and why I wanted to have you on here today.
No, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's one of those things. The conversation can get really weird really quickly if you attempt to sell a product or service that somebody is not interested in.
Right.
There's no offense that I'm saying to this industry, but one of the biggest offenders of that are the multi-level marketers. Huge believer in the industry, but a lot of times there's a conversation that went bad, and just completely soured a relationship.
Yeah, yeah. I was at a networking event last night, and there happened to be maybe three different women there with multi-level marketing in the nutrition field, and one of them, and they were all pretty great until one of them was like, I mean, literally was just so. Well, do you take supplements? What do you, I mean, like just so selling. And there
Right.
was such a difference in just people that were actually interested in getting to know you and talking and how can we collaborate and then somebody that was just selling. She was there to sell. So very
For
big difference.
sure. And if you dissect that, you're eventually jamming a square peg into a round hole if you're trying to sell.
Yeah.
However, if you take a look at the actual problem that the multi-level marketing industry solves, it's everybody wants more time and they want more money. Here's the traditional model, and here is the better mousetrap, which is multi-level marketing. So if you present the opportunity as something that you can grow on the side with a product, very different framing. You're actually solving a problem versus just jamming a product or service down somebody's throat.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Alan, do you have, I want to share your information for if anybody is interested in your course. Before we do that, is there any last final thought that you want to leave everybody with when it comes to helping us communicate better with AI as opposed to having it, degrade our communication?
Yeah, at a very simple level, always give before you ask. You have to earn the asks because people will pay you with their time before they will pay you with their money. So I'm going to pause there and really, really drive that home. Before people pay you with their money, they will pay you with their time. And they do that by consuming your content to figure out if you are the right fit to hire. So with that being said, just as a no strings attached gift, I'd love to give everybody who's watching this today a free copy of my ebook on how to dominate the newsfeed without spending a dime. If anybody wants it, very easy URL to remember. It's getallansbook.com. Gets book.com. It's an easy read. You should be able to do it within an hour. It's a PDF. The idea, though, is you can't sell until you first create an opportunity to sell. And when you give value, which I just did right over here, people warm up to you over time.
Ellen, thank you for that. I put the link in the chat box for everybody. GetAllensBook.com. I also put your course in there too, if anybody is interested in that. But thank you for the free ebook. That's a very generous offer. Thank you for that.
You're
We
welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much. Like I said, I love your energy. I've just had so many great conversations with you, and I hope that y'all got a lot out of it. My Chat GPT game has been up significantly since meeting Ellen, so hopefully that was valuable. Tara, did you have anything before I close this out?
I just want to express some gratitude because oftentimes, we'll have a guest on and they share their knowledge, and sometimes, we finish and then we're like, well, that's all there is to it. There's so much more where this is coming from. That's so evident. And so you were very generous with sharing so much knowledge, and I've learned what you have too. I mean, that's the way to build trust, is just to share your knowledge, and you modeled that beautifully today. So thank you so much.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I will close this out with the tenets that we are all about here on the Daily Huddle. Love, because at the core of every great connection, human or AI, the power of love is its genuine care. So adding value isn't just a heat principle, but it's a life principle. The more you give, the richer your life becomes. And laugh, because humor builds bridges, breaks down tensions, and makes every conversation, even with AI, more human. Stress less, because when you let go of what doesn't serve you, you make space for what does. And eat mostly plants. Fuel your body with the good stuff, because a well-fed mind makes better choices. Get sleep. Rest isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Even AI needs a reboot. And check your assumptions. Curiosity fuels education, trust, and better communication. So ask, don't assume. And yes, ChatGPT wrote that.
What a great way to end the segment. I love it.
That was on point, I have to say.
And guess what, Alan? It was full of emojis.
I love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. That was great.
So much